We're here in north central Missouri, where floodwaters of 2019 wreaked havoc on Missouri waterways and, of course, for farmers. We're here to check in with those farmers a year later and see how they're still dealing with Mother Nature.
We are one county south, actually a county and a half south of the Iowa line, north central Missouri. We're about an hour north of Kansas City, 45 minutes east of St. Joe in Daviess County. South of us, about a mile, is the Grand River, which is the biggest tributary that runs through this part of the state. The Grand dumps into the Missouri, which in turn will dump into the Mississippi. So we're Grand River bottom farmers. We don't farm as much on the Grand River itself as we do a bunch of secondary tributaries, what we call the Old River, Lick Fork, Honey Creek, but the Grand is what we farm on here.
A lot of this ground probably 60, 70 years ago was timber. And it was in the 60s and 70s when all this kind of got levied in this area, and a lot of timber got pushed away and started farming a lot of this. But like I say, Livingston County, probably close to 50% bottomland. And so it's pretty important for our agriculture that we've got this. This is half the land in this county that's farmed.
When crop ground covers the majority of the landscape, floods wreak havoc. These floods went beyond farmland bordering the well-known Missouri River, where federal levees reside. The waters overcame the Grand River and its tributaries as well.
It was just awful. I mean, unfortunately, it's the norm for us. You know, when you hear about big floods on the Missouri, they make national news, but what you don't hear about is it happens to us all the time. Though the Grand River and the small tributaries that dump into it flood way more acres every year than what the Missouri does, that's for sure. We've got some farms that we just got planted within the last week that flooded 3 times in 3 weeks. You know, we've worked them to death, you know, trying to get them to air out, pick up sticks, repair levees, open drainage ditches back up. It's just been, somebody told me the other day, said, boy, it'd be nice to have a normal year. And I said, no. I said, I want an abnormal year because this is becoming normal.
We're right here on the Grand River, and we're at a spot where we lost this levee last spring, and we're here to show you where the bored out the big hole in our farm, and then we've got the levee moved. We still got more to do.
When the Missouri River floods and levees need to be repaired, the Army Corps of Engineers is called in. But when levees need repaired along the Grand River and its tributaries, who's responsible for that?
We are the farmers that own the land. We take care, maintain, and repair most of the time on our own. Right here, we're joined on with a couple of neighbors that's all hooked together, and so they take care of their levees and we take care of ours, but we get along, and if we need a little help, then we'll help each other.
Farmers helping each other is key. However, levees are tricky. There is always someone downriver.
Downriver on the Grand, there is a lot of levees, but the secondary tributaries, it's logistically and financially impossible to go all these winding little tributaries and try to levee it. And then at the same time, if you go and levee on your side, the guy on the other side of the river may be your best friend, he may be your worst enemy, or he may not be in a position where he can levee it. So in turn, what you do is you protect yourself, but then you turn around and flood your neighbor. You don't really want to farm like that.
Levees are expensive, and luckily, after those 2019 floods, farmers received some aid.
Got the Farm Service Agency step forward and came up with some money and helped us out and was greatly appreciated. It was a 75-25 cost share is what it amounted to. The landowner had to pay 25%. He could do his in cash or he could do it in kind. You know, if you had your own dozers like we do, and we have track hoe, we could do enough work to make up for our 25%, and they would count that as towards the bill.
Once levees were repaired, farmers had to then think about once flooded land's soil quality. Just think of the sand and the silt left after those floodwaters reside.
A lot of our ground we've had to go in with we've got a small bulldozer, move the silt around, fill in big wash holes, big swirl holes, sinkholes. For the most part, it hasn't been awful, but it's taken a lot of time and a lot of diesel fuel to get them back. We've got ground that we haven't been able to plant just because it's so silty, the silt's so deep, the sand's so deep. Nothing to the size of what they've dealt with on the Missouri, but I remember 1993, and then I believe it was 07. I mean, it was of that scale, and it takes a year or two to get everything back to where it's somewhat normal.
Oh my, it's been thousands of hours put in to get this back in shape, because we had 60 acres of sand across this ground, and we took dozers and spread it and buried it and hauled it off, and then we went to work in the ground. I disc it, like I told you earlier, probably been over with a disc 7 or 8 times. Field cultivator that many, a V-ripper. That's not gonna be repaired overnight. It's gonna take a few years to get this all back to where it was production like it was before.
Crop ground was not the only thing damaged. Communities are still rebuilding roads.
Not very far from here, actually, the county had to go in and buy some land off of the landowner and build a new road because the Grand has come in and washed the bank out. It's starting to wash underneath the bridge. So in the roads, I'm on the township board here. You know, we've had to spend a lot of money putting in new tubes that have either silted in or washed out. And then the roads, just trying to get, you know, after water sets on them, they get spongy, putting more gravel on.
Despite Mother Nature, Chuck and Jerry are truly optimistic and agree this year's crop is looking exceptional.
So far, our crop is starting to look pretty good, I think. Naturally, we were complaining about the rain all this time, but we're going to need a shower before long, believe it or not. When this land produces, it produces well. And we take pride in that, and we take pride in taking care of our levees and our ground. And
our corn right now looks really good. In fact, we were so wet and cool, not to the extent we were last year, but we finally did dry up and warm up, and the corn has really outgrown us to get in there and do any side dressing. We may have to go in and throw some dry on top, give it a boost, but the corn looks phenomenal. We were more of a normal year this year getting it planted. Instead of planting in June, most of it went in late April and early May.
Seeing their optimism is contagious, but battling too much rain, not enough rain, fluctuation in the markets, it gets hard. What keeps these farmers trucking along? Passion.
I mean, there's a lot of sleepless nights, there's a lot of worrying. You know, a lot of times the wife asks, you know, what's wrong, what's going on, and you know, it's a lot of concern. But when you sit in the seat of that tractor and you look out across what you're doing, and then you come back in the fall and you're running the combine through it, and the yield monitor's high and whatnot, I mean, it makes it all worth it. I mean, I have a lot of hobbies that I kind of play around in, but really I'm not qualified to do anything else. We're farmers, we just got to fight on.
You can take the boy off the farm, but you can't take the farm out of the boy. I'll put it that way.